Kirivaki mai ki ngā podcast rakawi oia ka whakairataka ngā sports booth. I'm Husey, as always, and I'm joined by my co-host Luke. Luke, an upset this week, although maybe not an upset depending on if you've been listening to this podcast over the last few weeks. But hopefully I did the Fijian language some justice there using my translation software as I do. But I thought since I gave you a bit of a hard time last week for New Zealand losing to France and I opened the podcast in French, the least I could do this time was open the podcast in Fijian, or at least attempt to.
Yeah, it's what you'd say. I think it's the most wonderful time of the year, and no, we're not at Christmas. It's another Wallabies loss, and boy, I am here for it. It's a famous journey. What was it, 59
Mate,
years?
that's like saying the weekend's the best part of the year. It comes around every week, you know. It's not the best time of the week, best time of the year. It's the best time of the week.
Yeah, it's getting to that, mate, and that's what I guess it's disappointing for you, but it's an enjoyable moment for me to wake up on a fine Monday morning in Australia, seeing another Wallabies loss, and not just any Wallabies loss, a famous Wallabies loss to the Fijians. And I guess it gets you right in the hot seat now on your pool, mate.
Well, what I want to say is this, and I think this is more important, and this goes beyond Australian rugby, but we need to stop framing this as a Wallabies loss. This is a Fijian win, right? This is a Fijian victory. And I actually think, I know we're sort of diving right into things, but I think a lot of the conversation today has been really disrespectful to the Fijians, where it's like, oh, the Wallabies failed, the Wallabies didn't do this, the Wallabies didn't do that, as if the Wallabies just sort of let the Fijians win, as if the Wallabies failed. It was a bloody good effort by the Fijians, right? They played really hard, really tough rugby. You could see why Wales had to make 200-odd tackles in their game against them. The Fijians, they strangle you in possession. They hold on to the ball really well. They make mistakes here and there, and if they tidied up those mistakes, they'd be up in the top 5 in the world. But they did not give the Wallabies an inch of breathing room. And so I think the discussion really needs to be framed. As bad as the Wallabies' efforts were, this needs to be reframed as a Fijian win, because otherwise it is disrespectful to the Fijians. No,
I totally agree as well. And I sat there and we watched Eddie Jones, apologise to the Australian public. But I don't, say that Semi Radurada does pick that ball up and scores in the corner and the Fijians beat the Welsh. We are seriously talking like this is like a top 5 team, like this wouldn't be so famous of a loss, I would say. It's more, as we're saying, a win for Fiji. But yeah, I don't think he has to apologise to anyone like the Australian public. It was I think Fiji are doing what we expected. As we came into this tournament, we both said, look, Fiji are the team that's going to surprise. If anyone's going to surprise anyone, it's the Japan of last time. Like, we sat there and we watched Japan beat South Africa, and I think that was more of a surprise because no one saw that coming. Like this, we have at least seen coming. We've seen the building of this Fijian team.
Exactly. Building through Super Rugby Pacific. You could just see how the quality's improved in Fijian rugby. You combine that with their immense frames and the skill that they're able to play with the bodies of that size, it's just not fair. That is really rough. And look, it's looking like, they could be the team to get through. They could either top the pool or come second, right? Depending on the Australia-Wales result, This could be this could be a team that when they can make a semi. Like who are they going up against in their quarterfinal? Either England or Argentina, right? I reckon they match up well with those teams. Right, and they can play their style of rugby. They can impose their will, and they can get a win. And we could be talking about Fiji in the semi-final. We've been talking about it. You particularly in the lead up to this World Cup have been preaching the Fijian propaganda, and it's the truth. You've been sipping the Kool-Aid, right? And you could just see the results of it. Like as a rugby fan, it's a fantastic result because it's showing that world rugby can grow, right? We're getting away from, there's only 3 teams that have won a World Cup. This could be the year where a 4th team joins that. No, am I wrong? No, 4 teams have won the World Cup. This could be the year that we see a 5th, right? France and Ireland are poised to win their first one, but it's also showing that, these other teams are really improving in quality as well. And it's a fantastic sign to see. For a Wallaby supporter, Look, it's disappointing to be sure. I think we shot ourselves in the foot a lot of times. I think Taniela Tupou not being there really hurt us because he's an enforcer and he matches up well with those Fijian
And Will
boys.
Skelton as well.
That was going to be my next one.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
But without Skelton, we had no turnover potential whatsoever. Like our two flankers, I don't know. They were there. They had some carries. They made some tackles, but there was no pressure on the ruck except from the Fijian side, really. And whenever there was, I don't know what Richie Arnold was doing, but he seemed to constantly be penalised for trying to replicate Skelton. So I think that's a serious flaw in Eddie's game plan and in his selections. And it's, again, the loss of Michael Hooper, I think, can't be overstated. Not picked in the squad because of health reasons, but sure, he might miss the first game, but then a game like this, you think he's back for. This is a game he's sort of built for, Hooper.
Totally.
And I guess looking at the wider picture, I think in a previous podcast you asked me if Australia goes out in a quarterfinal, is that enough for me to say goodbye to Eddie Jones? And I said no. But I tell you what, if Australia doesn't get out of the group stages, then you pull the trigger right there and then. That is, as much as you're building towards as much as you're building towards 2027, if Australia doesn't get out of the group stages in a pool with Wales, who are at the weakest Wales has ever been, really, right?
Yep.
Sure, Fiji is doing really well, but Wales is weaker than they've ever been, and the other two teams are Georgia and Portugal. Obviously, Georgia's no slouch, but they're a team we should beat, and we did. Portugal's a minnow; they're not going to win a game this World Cup. But if we can't get past the Welsh at this stage, look, that's a sign that sure, you're building towards the 2027 World Cup, but your foundation is very shaky if you're not doing that. Fiji, even though they lost to Wales, they should have won that game.
Yeah.
And I think the Fijians are a better team than the Welsh. And look, for me, if you don't get out of pools this World Cup, I don't know what you have to offer.
What if you beat the Welsh and you go out due to points differential? Like all bonus points are all the same and it's point differential. Surely that's a pass mark to me. Again, like we're sitting here, and I think, I think if you beat the Welsh, you will get out of the pool because the Welsh only managed to beat Portugal 28-8, and we'll discuss a bit of the other teams and those other minnows performing well. But it could happen. Like you could beat the Welsh and still get knocked out at this stage.
That's true. I think you'd have to look at how the game against Wales went, and so really he's got the game against Portugal is off to the side. Unless something horrific happens in that game, I'm not really looking at the Portugal game to tell me anything. I'm looking at this game against Wales to see, okay, what can I see out of this game? This is now crunch time, right?
Yep.
For all the other games that Eddie has coached thus far, it's really been this. There's always the next game. This Wales game, there is no next game. Basically, this is it. This is crunch time. This is when you have to pull out your stops. This is where the buck stops. This is where you can't save anything for the next game. You can't be testing things out anymore. This is your final shot at things. This is your strategy to win, and you need to show us, me and Australia, what you're made of and what you can get out of this team. You have to get out of pools. Like for me, it'd be really hard to see when you've got a coach like Stephen Larkham waiting, who's had success with the Brumbies. He's been a player recently-ish, but seems to have a good idea about how to put an attacking game plan together. I would rather give Larkham 4 years and pull the trigger early on Eddie than get like a year or two into Eddie's tenure and realize, shit, this stuff's going nowhere. I'd rather have Larkham build a squad for 4 years.
Would you go Larkham and Eddie Jones to like director of rugby? Because I think it'd be silly to lose Eddie Jones and what he does bring to Australia rugby. As much as you could go, to me, I think if you go out of the pools, even if you go out in these pools, I don't think you pull the trigger quite yet. Like we've said, I'm surprised I'm hearing this from you, only purely because we've said he's only had a year with these lads, not even a year with these lads. And I know it's a Rugby World Cup and it's a pinnacle, But I don't think he was set up for success as we're sitting here talking about this.
Sure. What I'm worried about is that there's still some selection. For me, I think it hinges really on the continued selection of Geordie Pataia, right? The decision making just isn't there. Like he kicked 2 or 3 balls too far that then went dead, and it's just a completely wasted possession, right? For me, I feel like at this point Eddie should have seen what he needed to see out of Pataia, and I don't know why Parisi isn't in there. Parisi, Pataia's a decent defender; he can put a shot on, but so is Izzy Parisi. Izzy Parisi is a fantastic defender as well. He's got a better kicking game, which we've seen at the Waratahs as well. He's got better decision making, and he is a big moment player. You know, for me, that worries me that we're continuing to see that. With the Vunivalu pick, Eddie's continued to pick Vunivalu despite protests from yours truly as well as other people. But at least Vunivalu has progressed. We have seen progression from Vunivalu at least. So you think, okay, we could see at least Vunivalu was responding to Jones's coaching, and that's what Jones must have seen as well. But Pataia doesn't seem to be responding to the coaching. He seems to be still making the poor decisions, making the wrong decisions, and I just don't understand what's going on there.
I guess, and just to
that's what worries me is that he could be just like singularly focused. He's not willing to adapt his game plan.
And I get that. I think I'm just interested. Pataia, as we've probably argued more than just about anyone, is that Pataia is a fullback. We've seen it in the Reds. He was a fullback. Lena Kitau not being there may be the biggest loss in the Rugby World Cup, especially if you do go out in the pool stages now that we're seeing this. Because I haven't seen enough of Pataia to understand that decision either. But I guess there are so many decisions that you could question now from Eddie Jones, like the Carter Gordon Quade Cooper one, the Hooper. We could sit here and do that, I think, for days now because of what is transpiring at this World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the same as any kind of gamble, right? You know, you're a smart gambler if it works, or you're an idiot if it doesn't work. You know, I think the Quade Cooper one. I mean, you and I think we both sort of said, well, we'll see how this goes. But I think to not even call up Bernard Foley or someone to be an experienced head for Carter Gordon to speak to, I think that's a bit of an issue.
Like,
and I think that's rearing its head here.
If we look at this, your 2 playmakers there in 10 and 15 have had less than 10 games on the field for the Wallabies. That is just to me is mind-boggling. Like, again, Carter Gordon, I think, had a fantastic season for the Melbourne Rebels, who came 10th out of 12 in Super Rugby. Like, that's not against him. It's against whatever the Rebels were fucking doing. And believe me, I drank that Kool-Aid on the Rebels as well. But I just sat there and I go, there's not a lot of winning that's come out of them. Like, Donaldson at least has made 2 final series. But I just sat there and I go, something just doesn't seem right with these selections when you haven't got a lot to back them up. I
think Donaldson's played well, actually, to be honest.
Totally.
Like,
this isn't a shot at either of them. It's just more of an what we're seeing on the field. And now that you've lost one game, going into this Wales game, everything, like you said, it's going to be the game of the year. It could be the game of the next 4 years for what actually these Wallabies look like and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know.
I guess for me, why I'm so riled up is that I'm seeing mistakes made by the same player and players in this game that we saw in the first game against South Africa.
Yeah.
You know? Like, there's been progress in other areas, sure, but there's like this same mistakes that you just sitting there and like, how have you as a player not learnt by now that, you know, to just pull back on your kicks a little bit? Like, you keep kicking him dead.
Yeah.
Right? Stop kicking the ball dead. It's just, and you're doing it the same way. And yeah, I don't know. For me, I thought Nick White played really well. I thought a few players had some really good individual performances. Nick Frost had a really good game as well coming in. I think Slipper had a good game. Angus Bell, again, a stalwart, he was the only Aussie player really that seemed to get consistent forward momentum running into the Fijians. Like, he must just be the strength of an ox with how he's managing to keep going through some of those runs. And again, I think that's why the loss of Tupou was so pronounced as well. Like, Slipper, I think they had some great work at scrum time. I think the Aussies did well at scrum time. Lineouts as well were good. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm seeing the same mistakes, and I'm seeing shooting ourselves in the foot as well. Like, this is a game that Australia could have won. The better team, I think, won though. I think Fiji was the better team, but it's disappointing to see how the Aussies could have won.
Yeah,
and that's what's got me on edges. It's like, Fiji played well. They had their game plan. They stuck to it. I didn't feel like we had a game plan in that game. It felt like we were just responding to what Fiji were doing, and we weren't proactive. And that's really concerning.
Yeah, I get that. Shall we move on to some other games from this week too? On to the first game of the round, which was France versus Uruguay. And Uruguay, again, another minnow team, you'd say, a tier 2 nation. That stepped up and showed out with the big boys, really showed that you can't rest on your laurels and rest players too much in this tournament anymore, unless you're probably playing Romania, but we'll get to them. Because Uruguay were right in that game, 13-12. Could have been really in the game if a yellow card was upgraded, which we will touch base on soon, to Roman. Yeah. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, but it's like Tafuna.
Chamanet. Isn't it? Oh, no, sorry, I'm looking at the conversion.
Yellow card.
I'm looking at Romain Tawa Fifanua.
There you go. Yeah, you did a better job than I did.
Shot at it.
Yeah. But France pull away at the end and win 27-12. Don't get a bonus points, which is good for us, I guess. Because talking about that All Blacks game, that was the second game up, where we dominated Namibia 71-3, where we may have come... I don't know. It's going to be an interesting topic point. I've got it written down on it, but I'm going to talk about it now. Cam Roigard stepped up and said, I am the second place halfback in New Zealand rugby, Finlay Christie, and played so well that, look, I think against Italy, we're going to see Aaron Smith start, but I'd love to see him start again against Uruguay I just want to see him on that level because we've had Aaron Smith for so long, and I don't think you go away from Aaron Smith because Aaron Smith is fantastic, but he offered a different dimension with his run game, which Aaron Smith doesn't quite offer. Cam Roigard is a little bit stronger, obviously a bit younger, a bit more built, and definitely could take the line on a bit more, which he did well against Namibia, which will be really interesting to see how Fozzie goes. I just think it's certified that if we're in a close tussle against a France or something like that, being able to bring on someone who can change the game with their running ability. And I always thought this was what TJ Perenara was very good at, was his running ability. I think this is the like-for-like TJ Perenara replacement with Cam Roigard. And I'm very excited to see him on the footy field. Other than that, Leicester Whanganuku, I think, needs to find his way into an All Black squad when we're playing the big teams. He can play like an extra flanker. Now, I know Mark Tully has been fantastic, but I think Whanganuku offers the same, and the amount of turnovers he can get over the ball and just his defense, I just think he's had another fantastic game. And every time I see him in either a red and black jersey for the Crusaders or a black jersey for the All Blacks, he's doing something right. So, look, there's going to be some big decisions come quarterfinal time and leading up to the quarterfinal. But for now, box ticked by my All Blacks.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite moments of the game was when you scored a try. In the number 7 jersey, Dalton. You look like Dalton Papali'i right now with that mustache, mate.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I do look like I'm too far away from the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do pull a bit of a Dalton at the moment. His is a lot more luscious than mine, I would say. He's got a more like business. He's business class. I'm economy at the moment is the way I feel about it.
You're premium economy, mate. Don't put yourself down. You're premium economy. You've got the definition there. You've got the definition there. I can see it, and it looks like it's in a neat line. So don't put yourself down too much.
It's not bad. It's not bad. But yeah, he's
got the
definitely
extra leg room.
Next game up was Samoa versus Chile. Samoa getting their World Cup campaign underway in the right style, 41-10, which is a big win for them purely because Japan beat them 42-12, so it puts them on the same steed with at least Japan. And Japan, again, we'll get to them later, losing to England. Pretty much their World Cup campaign is looking like it's going down the gurgler, but still Samoa starting off very strong, which I'm impressed by. Then we jump on to another minnow starting off their World Cup campaign this year. Portugal scoring the first try against Wales, but losing 28-8. But again, another very good game for the minnows where we're sitting and going, Wales saw the French game and said, we can't rest on our laurels, and they came out and they battled hard and they got all 5 points. So credit to Wales for doing that after which was a very physical game against Fiji. So I think Wales took a lot of very good steps. You'd expect them to win by more, but picking up the 5 points, that's all that matters at the moment for them. And it puts all the pressure now back on Fiji and Australia to do the same before Wales meet up with Australia. Ireland then put away Tonga in Tonga's debut to the 2023 Rugby World Cup, 59-16. Man, the Ireland team is looking good. This Ireland versus South Africa clash is going to be mouth-watering, especially after South Africa put away Romania 76-0 in similar fashion to what Ireland did. And I talked about this. Romania had a change of coach at the end of last year or start of this year because the coach just felt like he had taken the team as far as it could go. And now we're seeing that. Like Romania, I think if you went through the qualifying process again with Romania, I don't think they would have qualified for the Rugby World Cup. But because they ticked all those boxes back then when the coach was on board and everything like that, they're there. They're competing. These games are going to happen. They're in the hardest pool. You just feel sorry for them a little bit. But I'm loving the fact that most minnows, other than Romania, in the toughest pool, are competing. And again, you're playing the number one. Arguably, I think South Africa might be number 2 at the moment. Number 1 and top 2 teams in the world going head-to-head in their first 2 games. We then had, obviously, the Australia versus Fiji, which we won't touch base on. And to round us out, England looked in trouble early against Japan. I believe it was 13-9 at the half, got to 13-12, but they managed to pull away and make it 34-12 to round out the round and put them at the top of that scene. Round 2 wrapped up. Round 3, who have you got in round 3?
We've got Wales.
Oh, so a big one for you boys.
Yeah, a week from today at 5 a.m.
Week from today, 5 a.m. I think I'll be on a plane then.
I think you will be.
Oh, yeah, I will be. Hopefully. Maybe I can get some in-flight entertainment and they'll be playing. I don't know if they do that for Qatar Airways. Won't be putting me on that. Yeah. Okay, that's the game of the tournament for you guys at least. So I imagine you'll be right involved with that. Well, we've got a round, don't we? We go South Africa versus Ireland at 5 a.m. on Sunday and you against Wales at 5 a.m. on Monday. And then,
so the full next round, Italy go up against Uruguay. Then we got France versus Namibia, Argentina versus Samoa. That'll be a big one. Georgia versus Portugal, England versus Chile. Then it's South Africa versus Ireland. So that's another big one. Scotland versus Tonga should be decent as well. Then it's Wales, Australia to round out the round.
Yeah, big round. And what we've learnt, I think, from these early first 2 rounds is how key discipline is. Because as we saw, you wouldn't normally expect a Fiji team to beat Australia and only score 1 try in that making of that win. But penalties, discipline. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not getting red-carded or penalised, you're going to win games. We look at someone like Ireland, who are one of the least penalised teams in the world, yet to have a card at this World Cup. I think they've given away the least penalties, and I know they've faced both Romania and Tonga and may not be quite up to the level of South Africa, which they're going to face, but still discipline's so key. If the Wallabies don't give away that many penalties and the All Blacks don't give away that many penalties in their first game, we could be talking about very different results. Wales about the only team that can give away penalties and still win a game at the moment. So I just think when we come to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, final stages, we're going to get to the point where it's going to be like, who doesn't give away the most penalties? who can get on side with the referee easier, quickest. And that's not me saying like this is ever the referee's fault. It's just who can adapt to the referee quickest. I think it's the better way of saying that. And who's not going to give away a card. We saw Ethan de Groot get red carded at the end of the All Blacks game against Namibia as he came off the bench. And we'll jump on that now. The red, yellow cards. We've had now about 3 or 4 examples of head-on-head collisions. So we had Tom Curry in the first game get yellow carded, upgrade to a red card after 3 minutes. Then we saw 2 more examples of head-on-head collisions not even get carded, not get cited. Then we had Roman T, I'm just going to call him Roman T, in the France versus Uruguay game, who, to me, there's a lot of dipping motion, but the arm doesn't wrap, and he definitely dips down. He's a 7-foot fucking lock trying to tackle a 5-foot scrum half. It's sometimes you make head contact, but you can't also sit there and adjust and say, oh, just because he's short, you didn't tackle low enough. You've got to adjust to that. So I think it should have been upgraded to a red card if we're playing on the basis that the Ethan de Groot one, which was upgraded to a red card, like the All Blacks have already come out and said they will argue that one because it's. To me, I sat there and I was like, wow, there was a dipping motion from the tackler. Yes, Ethan de Groot definitely doesn't get low enough. I still think we're at a point with these red and yellow cards and all of this. Again, it's a young time for, we've only been doing this, 3-4 years, I would say, of these, the red cards to heads, not the review system, but the red cards for head hits and stuff. It's still very new to this world, but we haven't got the consistency yet that I'm quite hoping for. And I would say most people would agree with me with that. Like, we just want consistency. If you can sit there, like, I can sit here and go, yes, we don't want head contacts. We understand it. And I sat there and watched Tom Curry's one, and I was like, man, that's tough. Head on head is always one of those ones where, like, you just got your head in the wrong position and you've made head on head contact. And I always feel bad for the players that do that. But they're teaching people, that means you've just got to get lower. It's just the way it is. So I think rugby's come to accept that we've got to tackle lower, but I just want consistency with what we're seeing with red, yellows, penalties, what's getting weeks bans. We saw the Owen Farrell one blow up, and again, nothing against Owen Farrell. But yeah, it's just interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. 100% agree. Consistency is what's required.
Totally.
It's just, look, I can at least say that it wasn't as bad as the howler of a call that the NRL had over the weekend in the Storm Roosters game. So look, it's not that bad where the consistency there is just all over the shop. But it is at the point where it is frustrating for different players are judged by different standards. It seems. So yeah, look, if you're gonna miss a call, at least miss it for everyone. Or if you're gonna call something a red, call it for everyone. If you're gonna call it a yellow, call it for everyone. That's as long as the rules are consistent, people can learn to play to the rules. But when they're inconsistent, that's where you get confused and found out a bit.
And if we just quickly want to put on our conspiracy hats here, if I put on my tinfoil hat and I go conspiracy theorist on us, people were talking a lot that like tier 2 nations are the one that are getting judged harshly. So the Uruguay player against Uruguay, it happened. Fiji against Wales. As much as you could buy into a conspiracy.
Every game,
as much as you could buy into that conspiracy, like, yes, tier 1 nations making it further in the competition is going to make World Rugby probably more money because Aussie fans are there willing to spend doing this. Get the fuck out of here. If Fiji make a quarter final, that's selling out just to people to watch Fiji play in a quarter final. So I just sit there and I go, as much as I can see why you'd be angry and you'd be sitting there asking questions, especially Fiji at that Wales one, no referees out there with a mandate from World Rugby to say, make sure Wales win this game. The referees are doing their best. Yes, they may miss calls. Yes, they may give too many warnings away. Again, we've left rugby up to the interpretation of the laws, and that is what the referee does on the day. And I just think adaptability from teams is now such an important skill to have. And I think one of the best adapting teams is Ireland. When I watch Ireland play, if they do start to give away a few penalties, they quickly work it out. And it's like looking at it if we talk about NFL quite a lot on this podcast, at half time they go in and make adjustments, and I just go, if you are not adjusting to the officials, then you're not making adjustments.
Which is again another concern I have about Australian rugby at the moment. It just doesn't seem to be any adjustments, and there was a lot of discussion after that game that even the reserves were used poorly. Like, you didn't use the reserves to really change the balance of the game. Blake Shop was used for 2 minutes. Like, what's the point of that? But also then you hook Carter Gordon 10 minutes into the second half. It's like, the use of the reserves just didn't make sense to me either. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Adaptability is it's not your best ability because that's availability, but adaptability
but it's getting pretty
is
close.
Your second best ability. Yeah.
Yes. Look, last thing I just want to touch base on with the performance of Fiji, which we've just seen, Portugal pushing Wales all the way, the Uruguay pushing France all the way. Is it time to go to a 24-team tournament? Now, I don't know. I haven't even looked at how that would work based off this, but ideally you'd have USA, Canada involved. Who else made it? I think Kenya and Hong Kong were the 4 teams that as well made the ends thing. You've also got Netherlands, Germany, all of those are close to it. But let's add USA, Canada, Kenya and Hong Kong just for the sake of bygones being bygones. But if we add those 4 teams, I don't think we're seeing as much 80-0. Like, we're looking at it, and Romania is the only team that's lost by 60 plus, or Namibia did, but Namibia's at every World Cup. And if we go back to, was it 2003 when you beat them 150 to, I think it was like the world record. I think it was the 2003, it was like 141 to 3 or whatever it was. You look at that, 2003, 20 years ago, and in 20 years we've gone, they're 71-3 to the All Blacks now, and Wallabies were just as good as the All Blacks back in 2003. So it's like we've already...
Better even, because they made the final that year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. And
I think
we haven't seen the
we beat you that year, didn't we?
Yeah, the semi-final, yeah.
Yeah.
But did you win the World Cup? No, okay, cool.
You brought up that stage. You brought it up. I'm just saying.
I'm just checking if you won the World Cup.
142-0 we beat Namibia.
And so fast forward 20 years, it's 71-3. Now, I sat there and I say this all the time, and I don't know if I've discussed this with you, but it fucks me off, all right? Australia and New Zealand get so much stick for help. Like, you've got to help grow the game in the Pacific. You've got to help grow the game in the Pacific. Let's look at this. Australia's just being beaten by Fiji. Samoa are looking really good in the pool. Tonga weren't... I know they got beaten well by Ireland, but they on their day could upset someone.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 teams from the Pacific performing really well. Tell me another African team, other than South Africa, that are even close to anywhere. Like, you just look at it and you go, I know South Africa look after themselves really well, but surely we should be pushing South Africa to grow the game in Namibia. Namibia should be a team that, South Africa have a great rivalry with, like the Australia and Fiji. Imagine one day South Africa lose to Namibia. Like, how incredible the scenes would that be? I just sit there and it annoys me that South Africa doesn't do more for Africa. And then there may be reasons for that. Like, but rugby's so big in South Africa. Like, they could do more. It's just what I see.
Especially since they used to occupy Namibia. It used to be considered South African territory as well.
Exactly.
So you're responsible for, that would make it a great rivalry as well. Yeah, I agree. It's always a lot put on Australia and New Zealand to look after the Pacific nations and grow it there, and even somewhat Japan. But where is the contribution from World Rugby, from England and the other Northern Hemisphere teams, right, to grow rugby in the Pacific, but also in the Northern Hemisphere to look after teams like your Georgias that are growing, your Romanias as well. And that's not even speaking about South America and North America, right?
Totally.
We should be growing the game in all geography, because the better it is around the world, then you get situations like the Soccer World Cup, where it is truly a global game and anyone from any corner of the world can make a run, like the Matildas did at the Women's World Cup.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. And you have those fairy tale stories that we're potentially looking at, like Fiji and Samoa, where a quarterfinal or a semi-final would just do them the world of good just for everything there. And I just sit there and
you won't meet fans more passionate than Fijian fans.
Oh, totally.
I think Fiji is very close to both your heart and mine after Super Rugby Pacific. So,
And
as much as this loss hurts, obviously as an Australian fan, I'm happy for Fiji. Like it's great.
Totally. It's one of those ones where, say, Fiji bet the All Blacks, and Argentina beating the All Blacks in Christchurch, you grit your teeth and you smile because you go, you know what? As much as it sucks and it hurts right now, I'm happy for Argentina to do that. Like, that you can just see what it does to them, how much passion it brings, how much it means to them to get those wins and do something like that.
You hate it to happen, but it has to happen to someone someday, and
Exactly.
you just got to grin and bear it. Like you think as well, like there's obviously Australia's copping a lot of flack right now for losing to Fiji, but some of these other rugby nations that are now up there, like your Argentina, used to be terrible teams, and people used to get, so someone had to lose to them for the first time. Someone had to, to cop that on the chin for the first time. So, and then you just say, oh well, that's not a big deal because now they're a more developed rugby nation. That's what's happening in Fiji, and I think people are blind to it because they're a small Pacific nation. But you know what? Small nations can make big noise in world sport. We see it all the time from New Zealand. So why not Fiji as well?
Totally. And now there's even renewed talks of getting them into the Rugby Championship, which I think would be so incredible. Yep. And I do want to just quickly touch base, not on the run sheet, but Super Rugby, again, we discussed this last time. Fiji's inclusion in that, Moana Pacifica's inclusion in that, and you know me, Husey, I've been critical of Moana Pacific and how it hasn't worked, but it's quite clearly working for the players playing on the world stage. Like Samoa look like a better unit because these players have had professional. They may not be winning games in Super Rugby, but they're, again, except against the Waratahs and the Hurricanes, but they are definitely showing off on the world stage. Even Tonga, who put in a good fight against Ireland, who have, beaten better teams and so on. So I just go, look, Japan losing the Sunwolves, it's just an interesting thing that Japan is starting to struggle and these, Pacific Island nations are starting to rise again. I think we devalue Super Rugby because we go, this is happening and not as many fans watching. But the actual product, the game that is there, is quite clearly still one of the best. Like we talk about the URC being the best club comp, but it'll be really interesting to see how Super Rugby teams and nations from Super Rugby progress now.
Yeah, well, and it's looking like, speaking of Super Rugby Pacific, Argentina apparently may be coming back from 2026, which would be great. And that might be, because the deal's closed until 2025. So 2026 is where we might start to see some more invitations into Super Rugby Pacific with, it'd be great to add two more teams. You add Japan and Argentina in there, and you really start to build a significant competition.
Yeah, I think done the right way. Look, we saw, what was it? It was the Aguares. We're one of the most competitive teams. It was hard to go out there and play. I think it is what lifted Argentina up to the standard that they are at now. And I think it would do the same to Japan. And I go, why the bloody hell not? As much as we want to do it the right way, and I think we've done it the right way with the Fijian Dura. They have done it so well with them. That first year, hello, how are you? Second year finals. That was the thing with the Sunwolves. It was never, I think, set up for them to succeed. It was always you're going to be the whipping boys. Whereas, we're not even close to Super Rugby, but boy, when we get close to it, we're going to have to. It'll be a really interesting year. No Razor at the Crusaders. You've got the Western Force stockpiling everybody. I mean,
Rebels stockpiling a few people as well.
Exactly.
Tupa's down there now.
Two former All Blacks heading to the Reds. It's going to be very interesting.
Julian Savia to Moana Pacifica.
Oh, a massive respect for him to do that. I think. Yeah. I saw that he was announcing that he was going to another Super Rugby team, and it's quite typical in New Zealand that if you want your Super Rugby career to kind of finish off, you go to the Highlanders because they just seem to get the older talent going there. Ma'anono did it for a few years. I think Brad Fawn ended up down there for a bit as well, and I was like, he's going to end up at the Highlanders and. Going to Moana Pacifica, I just think it's a brave move because he's come from the Hurricanes, which is a culture of winning. As much as we only won one championship, we were there and competitive every time. And he's just gone quite clearly. This is probably not even a money move, I would imagine. This is I want to play rugby still. I've still got a couple of years left into me. I don't know if he doesn't qualify for Samoa yet or what happens there, but he must be close, and he just wants to give back to his people, and I just think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to make losing Levi Amoa was big, but being able to bring in a name like Julian Savia and him willing to do that, I just thank him for doing that. I think that's such a service for a player like that, and now he's going to end up breaking the Super Rugby try scoring record in a Moana Pacifica kit, and how great's that going to be?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Oh, she's been a big week.
Yep.
Look, I'm going to leave the final words to you, because you need to do a rally cry for your Wallabies to get them up against Wales this Monday next week. I want to sit in here talking about a famous Wallabies trouncing of Wales. So, look,
okay. Look, for me, looking at this game, there's a few things that really stand out to me, right? And that is the primary amongst them is that we can't give up. We can't give up on plays. We can't give up on our game plan. We can't give up on each other, right? We Australians, we came to the country on earth that is least suited to human life. The amount of things that want to kill us here is just incredible, right? It's bred a survival instinct into all Australians, right? And that's what we need to rely on right now. We need to dig deep, find that Aussie spirit, and give it to these Welsh pricks, all right? And I say this as someone with Welsh heritage. My last name is Welsh, so I can say it, all right? Back yourselves, Wallabies. Back yourselves. Don't go kicking shitty balls. Run the ball in hand, right? If there's something this game against Fiji has taught us, is that the team with possession generally wins, right? Hold onto the ball. Trust in each other. Trust in your teammates, and reward your teammates' trust. That's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times we're seeing the same mistakes that we've always seen from the Wallabies, where people will charge forward and there's no one there to back each other up. How far have we come from the Diggers of Gallipoli that no one's there with their mates running alongside them? Think of that. Rally. Think of Lone Pine, and think of the Neck, and think about the Anzac spirit, all right? When you take it to those Northern Hemisphere pricks, all right? When you see your mate going forward, you go forward as well, into the hail of bullets, into the trenches, into the storm, and fucking pull out the victory. No one believes in you right now. The Australian public doesn't believe in you. The Australian media doesn't believe in you. The rest of the world doesn't believe in you. But I believe in you. The small boy sick at hospital on his deathbed. All he wants, his last wish, is the Wallabies win. That's me, by the way. I'm the sick child on his deathbed. All he wants is a Wallabies win. And that you just believe in each other and reward each other's belief in you, and do that and you'll win. Wales isn't anything special, right? They struggled against Portugal. The Fijians should have beaten them. They got very lucky that they weren't beat there. Luck is good. Making your own luck is better.
There it is. There it is. Look, couldn't have said it better myself, Hughesy. Good luck to all you Wallaby supporters there. We know you need it, because skill hasn't got you very far in the past year. But I will leave you with saying bulla to all our Fijian fans, because congratulations for a famous victory. And
I hope they get through to the next. I hope they get through to the quarters.
Look. It's really hard for me, because I love a good I love a good Wallabies team. And I like to see the Wallabies doing well, because, again, if there's anything I want a final against the Wallabies for the All Blacks and us to win. That's what I want in life. It's not hard. It is hard because the Wallabies struggle to get to finals. But when they do, that's all I want. And when I sit here, I want the Wallabies to go through. I don't hate the Welsh. I've got a mad respect for the Welsh. They love rugby as much as New Zealand loves rugby, so on and so forth. And then the Fijians. So it's a tough one. But if there's two teams we want to go through from this pool, it is Fiji and Australia, especially on this podcast. Up the Anzacs, up the Southern Hemisphere. Fuck off, you Northern Hemisphere pricks.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better.
Alrighty, we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Peace.